Hello students. All right, here we are, still 11.1, and we're looking at immunity. So what does it mean for someone to say, I'm immune? Right? What does that mean? That means that you have enough memory cells so that the pathogen that initially infected you or triggered an immune response is no longer going to make you sick anymore. So immunity depends on the persistence of memory cells. So it's very important that we go back and we remember how we trigger the clonal selection of these memory cells. So remember that we have lymphocytes, and these lymphocytes are white blood cells. And remember that these lymphocytes can differentiate into T cells or B cells. And then remember that T cells are responsible for activating B cells in mammals. So it's all got to start with that helper T cell, right? But then once these B cells become activated, these B cells either make plasma cells or memory cells. And remember that these plasma cells are the ones that are going to make specific antibodies. And then these specific antibodies are going to aid in the destruction of pathogens, right? And remember panic, which are the different things antibodies can do. And then these memory cells are the ones that are going to give us that long-term immunity because they're going to know how to fight off that initial infection, okay? So let's look at what it says here. It says that the adaptive immune system relies on clonal expansion of plasma cells, right, to produce enough antibodies. So it's this right here. But it takes a while. When you first get exposed to a pathogen, there might be a delay in this initial antibody production. So then that means that in those 3-5 days, everybody's immune system is different, right? So in those first couple days, until you have enough antibodies to fight that pathogen could be reproducing quickly. And during this delay period, that pathogen can make you sick and can impede normal body functioning. So we see this with COVID-19, right? We see that a lot of people get sick and they don't have a way to fight off COVID, right? Because you're still in the process of making antibodies. So why are memory cells important? Well, memory cells are produced to prevent this delay to subsequent exposures. That way, the pathogen doesn't give, you don't give the pathogen a chance to make you sick. Okay? So remember that B lymphocytes, besides making plasma cells and antibodies, they're also going to differentiate into memory cells. And remember, I've been saying it all along, these memory cells are long living and they're going to give you long-term immunity. That means they're going to survive in the body for many years, and they're going to be producing constantly low levels of circulating antibodies for that one specific antigen. So for example, me, who happens to be vaccinated for COVID-19, I am very lucky, right? Because right now in my body, I have low levels of circulating antibodies for COVID-19, hoping that my memory cells are making those low levels of circulating antibodies. Only time will tell, okay? So if I get a second infection, and why do I call it a second infection? So I've been vaccinated and I've never been sick with COVID, but I still call it a second infection because I've been exposed with the vaccine to the COVID protein. So then I have antibodies to that COVID protein. So if in the future I get infected again with COVID, and let's say it's the real thing now my memory cells are going to react more vigorously and they're going to produce antibodies a lot faster. So we are not going to allow COVID that second time around to replicate quickly and to replicate to sufficient amounts to cause disease symptoms. Okay, so because the pathogen exposure no longer causes the disease, then I am said to be immune. But notice that this is important, right? So being immune doesn't mean that I am no longer exposed to the pathogen. I could still be exposed to the pathogen and transmit it to other people via asymptomatic transmission. Being immune means that the pathogen that I'm exposed to, it's no longer going to make me sick. But I can still certainly be exposed to it and pass it along to other people. Hence the reason why, even though teachers are vaccinated right now, right, in the building, we still all need to be wearing masks so that we don't expose students who are perhaps not vaccinated. Okay. So here we see a graph. It's called Immunological Memory, and we see antibody concentration in the blood, and it's a logarithmic scale. So here we start with the first exposure to pathogen, and here we see time on the x-axis. So notice that from the onset of the first exposure of pathogen, it takes a while, right? And again, everyone's immune system is different. It might take me 3 days. It might take someone else 7 days to build somewhat of a concentration of antibodies. Now, this might not be enough for a virus as strong as COVID, right? And then this COVID-19 might make you really sick because it can lead to secondary complications like pneumonia. Let's say that you were exposed to the virus, or you're exposed to the pathogen, or you were vaccinated, right? So then the antibody concentration after a certain amount of time is going to go down. Okay, but if you become exposed a second time to the second pathogen, look at what's going to happen to the antibody concentration. Within a matter of days, 1 or 2, some immune systems can be faster than others, because of the persistence of memory cells and because of the persistence of low levels of circulating antibodies, right? This is this antibody concentration in your blood, which is a logarithmic scale, is going to shoot up quickly within a day or 2. And that is not going to allow the pathogen in the second exposure to replicate, to propagate, and to make you sick. Hence, you are considered immune. Okay? All right, so hopefully that helped to give us a better understanding of what immunity is and what vaccine immunity also provides for us.